Greetings my lovelies, and thank you for stopping by this circle today. It is time for another installment of my character dives, where I take mine and maybe your favorite characters from literature, movies, and whatever have you, and look at their archetypes, character traits, and how that comes to play into the characters. Today's installment is all about Fiona Finnegan, one of my personal favorite heroines from The Tea Rose by Jennifer Donnelly. So let's go ahead and jump right on into it. So I'm not quite sure how I came about finding The Tea Rose. It was kind of, I guess, like a random purchase, because I tend to buy books by their covers. What? They're works of art and a lot of money and time go into it, okay? I can appreciate them. But anyways, I'm ever so happy that I did, because I have never read a story that just encompasses so much of one person's lifetime and feels like no time has passed at all as I'm reading it. So let's go ahead and talk about a little bit of the background of what's going on in the story, mostly spoiler free, before we go ahead and jump into the archetypes and character traits. Now, this book takes place like during the end of Jack the Ripper on into like the early 19-ish, time frame. And it mostly involves a lovely character called Fiona Finnegan and her family in the beginning parts of the book. Fiona and her family are what is referred to in the book as the working poor, which basically means that they bust their butts to barely make ends meet. They live in Whitechapel, which, if you know anything from anybody, is usually like the slums. Even within slums, there are nicer areas and harder areas that you wish to avoid. They live in one of the nicer areas. However, because they are of the working poor, they have no savings. So if anything happens to their two main breadwinners, i.e. the father and the brother, they're basically fucked because there is no equal pay. And isn't it great that things have changed these days? So without going too far into a bunch of other different details, the long of the short of it is that the greatest tragedy that could ever befall their family actually does happen, and Fiona's father dies. And that just all starts a downward spiral for the rest of the family. Her brother Charlie ends up being dredged up from a river with a caved-in skull. They lose everything that they ever had and have to go live in this terrible two-up, two-down type of home that they share with a bunch of other people. And because of that, they end up running across Jack the Ripper, and the mom and the young baby end up dying because of it, and some other details. So it ends up that Fiona and her brother Seamus are the only ones that are left. Well, it doesn't get any easier for them, because Fiona tries to fight for her family because of the company that is refusing to pay money for her father's death. It's a whole thing that I'm not going to go into, but basically she ends up having to run to the Americas in order to protect herself and her brother, because that is where her only last living family member lives. Well, when she gets there, things are fucking rough, but this girl's got some grit and determination. She rolls her skirts up and she just fucking works hard at it to the point where she ends up becoming a very successful businesswoman. And she uses her success to get revenge on the man that fucked her family over. See why she's my favorite? Alright, so that's enough of the backstory without really giving too much away. So let's go ahead and talk about her archetype. So when I was first trying to figure out where exactly I could fit Fiona, I initially started off as like a nurturer, which is typically where a lot of female characters kind of end up. But as I was looking at it, that really didn't fit her character arc overall. Nurturing and caring for her family was only one small facet of herself. So when I took a step back to think about her arc in this story and in the two following stories, it really became clear that there was only one category that she could fit in, and that is the everyday man. Now, the everyday man is exactly what it sounds like. There's nothing special about them, but they are thrown into an extraordinary situation, and they grow and develop because of said situation. Very much like Bilbo Baggins or Mr. Kowalski from Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. She's very grounded in what she wants and what she believes in and a good sense of right and wrong, but she is very woefully unprepared for the world that she's in. She's a woman in a time where women really didn't have any rights or power. She tries to start a business, but she has no fucking clue how to do it. She's trying to be the matriarchal leader of the family, find love again, and a whole bunch of other things, and she's really just struggling. She finds her feet, but it does take her a hot minute. So when we look at all of that, it is very clear that the everyday man, or woman in this case, is really where Fiona resides. Which is great, because not everyone needs to have magical, fantastical superpowers or lineages or whatever. Sometimes we just need a story about common everyday people surviving and overcoming obstacles, because let's face it, this world is a harsh and cruel place, and sometimes it's nice to see someone that we can really relate to succeed in some fashion. Let's go ahead and talk about some of the character traits that I noticed while reading this book and some of the other ones. First and foremost, Fiona is hardworking as fuck. She has a good work ethic given to her by her father and her mother, and that really just kind of drives her going. She has no problem getting dirty. Even when she becomes wealthy, her husband at the time kind of laughs at her because she pays no attention to the fancy clothes that she wears and has no problem crawling in under some greasy ass piece of machinery to fix it. Because that shit gotta get fixed. She is constantly trying to think of new ways to innovate her tea business, her grocery store business, her salon business, and so on and so forth. She is also extremely loyal. She will do anything for her friends. So when she has a friend who lives a lifestyle that kind of goes against the convention norms, she is willing to give up everything that she has worked for to protect him, because she knows what it will mean for him to be put in jail and to be deported back to England. She gives up an entire marriage for this character because she loves him and she's more loyal to him than to the man that was trying to change everything that is about her. So it's a win-win in my personal opinion. She's also very loving. The first love of her life, she's loved him since they were children, and she loves him fiercely with everything inside of her. She also loves her family and even mourns her father and her mother, up until the end of the series. She loves her friends, she loves her family, is always making connections, and once you make a good connection with Fiona, she's got your back for life. And we honestly need more people like that. She also has a very strong sense of justice that isn't really dictated by society or cultural norms. As in for the case of her friend who is of the alphabet mafia variety. She sees no problem in it. She really doesn't give two flying flips and actually chews out the people that abused and beat him because of his sexual preference. Now on the flip side, because she is young, she is very naive and continues to carry on that naivete throughout a lot of the course of the series. But I think that's what's very endearing of her, because she's always willing to try to live in the best of everything, so she automatically assumes that everybody has the same sense of righteousness and morality as she does. Good quality, but tends to get you taken advantage of a lot. But that's not to say that she does not have a hot ass fucking temper. She will snap on occasion and just go off. They account it to the Irish in her, but when she gets mad, she just flips the switch and there she goes. And she tends to act without thinking, and that major trait right there, her lack of forethought, sets in a lot of things into motion for her to go to America. Because she did not think everything fully through, she just kind of was reacting upon emotion and ended up creating slightly bit more of a problem for herself, but also gave herself the tools that she needed to escape. So, 50-50. She's also willing to sacrifice herself for comfort. As I said earlier, she almost marries a man who is going to force her to give up everything about herself to fit into what society deems appropriate for a woman of fine standing. She does that because she's afraid of being alone because of what happens with her previous love of her life. Just a bit of advice, don't ever fucking do that. If you have someone who genuinely loves you, they will not ask you to really change fundamental things of yourself. In a relationship, you will change some things, you know, like learning to pick up after yourself, or learning to remember to close things behind you, or, you know, put your clothes in the hamper instead of leaving them all over the floor. Those are small things, but when you are saying, let's say someone who has a drive for business, and they're asking you to not do a business, you know, not to do that anymore, because that's not what people of their status does, then yeah, drop that motherfucker to the curb, because they ain't worth it. But even with some of her shortcomings and with some of her other faults, I still love Fiona very, very much. I mean, it's a very gripping story from beginning to end. And there are two more in the trilogy, honestly. There is the White Rose and the Wild Rose. I do like the White Rose too, because it's all about doctors and it follows along with some other people of Fiona's family. And the same thing with the Wild Rose, but that one I don't like at all. Like, I didn't bother purchasing that one for my personal library. I just read it, couldn't care a lot about it, and I just kind of skimmed through the parts that I wanted. But hey, not every book's gonna be a banger, right? So that is all that I have for you today. That is my character dive with Fiona Finnegan. If you have a character, be they from literature, a video game, movies, comics, manga, whatever have you, that you want me to rip apart to the bare bones to understand how to develop and create complex characters, just drop a comment down below and let me know. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. That lets me know to keep on doing it. And if you want to check out what else I'm doing, go ahead and follow me at my social media links that have filtered across the screen and are listed down below. And if you really, really like this video, don't forget to subscribe. I do these videos as well as writing advice and book reviews. So that is all that I have for you today, and I will see you all next time. Bye!